newly remodeled home or audio and TV department here in the Omaha location. We're going to be talking to you about some of our newer technologies on the market for both TV and audio-wise, both. We're also going to be doing a giveaway for a 65-inch 8K QNED 99, roughly estimated about at a $1,700 value. All that you have to do is comment down below or ask us any questions. We'll automatically enter you in for that giveaway.
First thing that we're going to talk about are TVs and resolution specifically. Can you give us a little background on what resolution means?
Absolutely. So resolution is going to end up being how close you can sit from that TV or how clear that TV is going to end up appearing for you. So you have two different types of resolutions on the market, both 4K and 8K. And Jacob, do you want to elaborate kind of a little bit more about what that is?
Yes. So when you're looking at resolutions, if you might remember about 10 years ago, we had 1080p TVs. That was kind of the big bang. That meant if you were a 55-inch TV or even larger, you had to be at least 10 to 15 feet sitting away from the TV. With a 4K TV and a 55-inch, you can be about 5 to 8 feet away. The big idea is more pixels, it's better and cleaner image, and that's the same going into 8K. You can get even closer to 8K TVs than you can with 4K TVs.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It just gives you a better detail out of that image. Absolutely. Anything else that we should touch on there?
I think for right now, 4K and 8K, I think that's a good kind of touching stone on that. So
perfect. So next we're going to talk about choosing the size of the TV. Just depends off of the distance that you're sitting from the screen. Any guidelines that you might have?
Typically 8 to 10 feet, you're going to be around that 55 range. If you're going from 10 to 12, I'd say 65 would end up being a good range. And then it kind of varies from there. If you're going up 65, I'd say roughly about that 13, 14 foot range would end up being good. And then if you're further back, obviously bigger size you're end up going with.
And the beauty of it right now is there's no set in stone size guideline. There's just general guidelines. So if you come into the store, we can give you an idea on what would be the best fit for you. Sometimes people want to replace a TV and they just want to go larger, and that's okay. So it just depends on the area. We don't want to be too big, but we don't want to be too small.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we can talk a little bit about basic lighting structures. We have basic LED LCD TVs, QLED TVs, and OLED TVs. And if you want to give them a rundown on that.
Absolutely. So you're going to have two kind of big differences on the market. It's going to be QLED and OLED, which those terms sound very, very close to each other, so it might be a little confusing. But a QLED TV is essentially how they've been making TVs within about the last 15-ish years. So there's a backlit source, and all those layers end up traveling through X amount of layers through there. And then you finally get your LCD screen to end up getting your image that's on that screen. So for that light source to travel from point A to point B, it has to travel through a lot of different layers. So you might lose out on some of that contrast. You might lose out on those black levels. So start might looking a little bit more of a bluish hue or a little bit more gray than anything. Now your OLED TVs, what they do is they remove all those extra layers that light has to travel through. So your point of contact from light is going from here to here to about there to there. Now what they're doing is, since they're removing all those layers, it's just going to be essentially a panel and lights, and they're matching actually your 4K resolution, which we didn't really touch on it, but 4K resolution stands for 8.3 million pixels. And what they're doing for each one of those pixels, they're actually putting a light behind it. So your OLED TVs have 8.3 million lights self-lighting the entire TV. Each one of those lights are controlled individually with their own RGB scale, so you do get that faster refresh rate. You get that true black retention out of it, which helps with a lot of that contrast as well too. And then you're also going to be just a little bit closer to that true color, which I think is what a lot of people are trying to strive for, is that true color out of a TV.
Definitely. Yeah. So we do actually have a question in the chat. What sets QNED apart from QLED? You want to touch on that?
From my understanding, QNED, QLED, kind of roughly about the same thing, right?
It's very similar. QLED uses a film that brightens up the color and gives you a better HDR effect, which we'll touch on HDR in a little bit. QNED is LG's version of the same technology, and there are a couple of steps further. There's Neo LED and QNED MiniLED. That just means that they have smaller lights in the panel that gives you better control over the TV itself. Gives you better black levels, gives you more accurate color, less haloing or clouding, which is light bleed throughout the screen.
Definitely with those mini LED TVs as well too, if you have a lot of light that's coming in that's going to be hitting that TV line, maybe you got some open windows or something, your mini LED TV is going to end up helping combat a lot of that outside glare that you'll end up having on the TV, so which is really nice.
We actually have another question, and it's about LG's operating system, smart capabilities. What improvements have been made?
Absolutely. So LG uses something called WebOS for their main operating system, and I personally own an LG. I absolutely love it. But WebOS, essentially, LG makes a TV that wants it to be really nice and smooth for the consumer. So from going from Netflix to like YouTube, they want it to be really nice and smooth. They have other smaller features like the magic remote option, where if you actually wave the remote in front of the TV, you can get kind of pops up with a little cursor that you can kind of go through and select different stuff, maybe type in a password, or it gives you the option to even surf the internet as well too.
So the big idea when it comes to their upgrades, they've made things more smooth with their newer renditions of this new software. Everything's a lot easier and smoother to control. If you remember older versions of the WebOS, it did have a little bit of a clunky feel to it. It doesn't really have that issue now. We also had another question that was about if an LG TV sits against the wall or if it can sit flat against the wall. There are TVs that can be mounted completely flat against the wall, and that would be like the LG G3. That's called their Gallery series. It has a special mount that allows it to hang completely flush to the wall. They have to have some special things put in beforehand, though. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, or if you have questions about, come in and see us. We'll be able to answer those questions for you.
Absolutely.
We should talk a little bit about motion rates and what's important when it comes down to sports, video games, things like that. We're going to have the basics of 60 hertz and 120 hertz panels, but if you can give them a little bit of a background to that.
Absolutely. So your 60 hertz panel TVs typically going to end up being a little bit more of your entry model TVs, and then you'll end up getting into 120 hertz, which again, more kind of that mid to kind of high end TV there for you. And so really what it is going to end up being how smooth that image is going to be moving across the screen. So for 60 hertz, let's say we had a train in front of us and it was driving by and it was starting to kind of pick up some speed. On a 60 hertz panel, if they had any kind of lettering on the side of it, you're going to notice that that's going to start kind of blurring a little bit. And as that train starts speeding up, it's going to be a lot harder to end up seeing those words. Now, when you end up getting into a 120 hertz panel, as that train starts moving and it starts chugging along and it starts picking up some speed, you're going to actually be able to kind of keep up with the lettering that would end up being on the side of it there. Or if you're looking at it on a sports side, if somebody's throwing a football out, 60 hertz panel, you might almost notice that it looks like there's like 2 or 3 different footballs that are following behind it. As for that 120 hertz, it's going to keep that football flying smooth across the screen without having any of that kind of after effect image looking at it.
So adding into what Noah's saying, there is also another thing called soap opera effect. So when you're watching on a 60 hertz TV and a lot of things that are like a big blockbuster movie, you may see a hyper realism on a 60 hertz TV because they're trying to fake doing 120 hertz motion. What they do is they'll add black frames in between each frame, and that tricks your brain into thinking there's more smooth movement. That is generally not something that what people want. And that's why we generally recommend 120 hertz TV if you're a big movie head, if you're a big sports fan, or a big video game person.
I think Jake and I have the video game department down pretty nicely.
Yeah, just a couple of big nerds here.
That's for sure.
So we can talk a little bit about HDR, because we did touch a little bit on it before. There are a lot of different forms of HDR, like HDR10, HDR10 Plus, which is pretty much a Samsung exclusive, and Dolby Vision, which are a handful of different brands. Do you want to explain the differences?
Absolutely. So HDR isn't something in store we necessarily talk about a whole lot with their customers, but it is still nice to know about what it is because it's prevalent on almost every single TV. And HDR is going to be your high dynamic range, and it's going to end up dictating how well it's going to end up optimizing what you're watching for you. So base HDR is going to be optimizing that video from start to finish all the way through. As soon as you put it in, it's optimizing it, right? Which isn't the most fluid thing in the entire world. As soon as you end up getting into like 10 plus, it's going to start doing either like chapter by chapter, or it's going to start doing scene by scene, depends on kind of what levels that you're looking at.
Even going as far as frame by frame when you're getting into HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision. It's all about how much color and how accurate that color can be.
Absolutely. So when you get into like something like Dolby Vision, let's say for example, Nemo, right?
Sure.
When they made Nemo, it was somebody that was sitting in a studio. In Dolby Vision, what they're trying to do is they're trying to take the person that was sitting in that studio and his original, I guess, color scheme for it, and they're going to try to perfect that as much as they possibly can. So you're going to be as close to the original content as you would end up being.
The idea is director's intent and getting as realistic of a picture as you possibly can.
Absolutely.
We do have some more questions. And I want to kind of touch on this one in a little bit. Somebody asked if we offer installation. We definitely do, and we'll touch on that more at the end. We also have, does NFM repair TVs? Unfortunately, we do not, but we do have service plans that guarantee that we can have the TV active and running or replaced within 3 or 5 years, so we can touch on that in a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And what is the biggest size offered? Well, behind us here, we have 100-inch TVs. Those are the biggest that we're going to show on the floor itself, but there are bigger TVs available. It just really depends on what you want to spend. We can go all the way on up to 170-inch. We can go bigger. There are panelized TVs that are individual parts that get even larger. But generally, the biggest that you're going to see are 100-inch TVs, and those are just like what we're seeing right behind us here. So going from there, we're going to talk about gaming features. Most specifically, HDMI 2.1.
It's definitely a hard word to get out there, Jacob.
Yeah, that is a tough word. Oh my gosh. HDMI 2.1 and their features for the new gaming systems like the PS5 or the Series X. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Absolutely. So a lot of your higher end TVs are going to be equipped with, and actually, shoot, even Samsung nowadays, with even some of their more entry models, are going to be equipped with HDMI 2.1 outlets, which essentially is going to be able to pass that full 4K 120 hertz from like either your PlayStation or your Xbox to the TV. So you're essentially getting the best value out of your console to the TV, sticking with like that 120 hertz panel there with it.
Now there are some things that you need to make sure that you can actually pass this signal. You do need an HDMI cable that is 48 gigs per second. So if you are looking into doing something like that, again, come in and talk to us. We'll make sure we get the right pieces for you.
Absolutely. And the nice thing is, too, is most Xboxes and PlayStations already come with the correct HDMI cable. Yep. But if it was something to where you weren't familiar with that, maybe you toss that cable, you're like, I got something better. You can always come on in and we can always kind of talk about what a good option is for you for that.
Do most TVs allow Bluetooth capability? Actually, yes. Mm-hmm. Almost every single TV that we have here does offer Bluetooth. Now, I do want to touch a little bit on that. When you get into Bluetooth connection, if you're trying to watch a movie or a game or anything really off of that TV and have that sound transmitted to a device nearby or right under the TV, know that you may have a delay, and it may be a pretty significant delay. So that is one of the drawbacks to wireless audio when it comes to TVs and audio. We don't really recommend that. A hard wire is always the best way to go. At least right now, we haven't really gotten too far in that Bluetooth world.
Not a whole lot, but there are still some good options out there for Bluetooth devices. Maybe that you're the late night person, maybe wife and kids are sleeping next to you. Mm-hmm. You can always end up Bluetoothing a pair of headphones to the TV, which is really nice. Yes, there might be a delay, but you also don't have to hear anybody nagging about you listening to TV too loud at night.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
There's definitely pros and cons to both of it. Just kind of depends on the experience that you're trying to achieve out of your video audio experience.
Absolutely. Now, aside from just Bluetooth, there are other devices that are Wi-Fi. Now, we can touch a little bit more on that when we get into the audio section. Absolutely. For like Sonos and Bose, but know that there is a wireless option that is available. We have another question about TV speakers.
Okay.
What TVs actually have the best speakers?
I would say the Sony OLED models, specifically their A80L model, to kind of start it off at, would end up probably having some of the best TV speakers. They actually use an acoustic vibration system to where they're going to actually shake that screen to produce that noise, and it's always going to end up being matched up with what's being played on the screen, so you're not going to have any of that delay or anything like that behind it.
So if you aren't going to go with an external speaker system and you are dead set on just having the TV for speakers, really that is your best option. That or the A95L, they're better version of the same style of TV.
Most cases with other TV speakers on the market, they're either going to be downward firings or rear firing speakers, to where when those, when the audio waves are being shot off, they're shooting either right directly down into your credenza or into your floor or wherever you have your TV at, or it's being shot right up onto the back wall. So when that audio hits that area, it's just kind of scattering and kind of moving around, and you're not getting that projection out towards you, nor that separation there between your audio channels.
Yes. I do have another question as well. Do you recommend these 100-inch TVs be mounted?
100%,
yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. It's definitely safer. I mean, that's not a cheap piece of gear. So if it's on a stand and a child bumps it or a pet bumps it and it falls over, that's not a fun thing to have to replace. That doesn't mean that they are required to be mounted. They do come with stands, but we have specific mounts that are built for big TVs, and we have ours on the floor mounted. So we do recommend that.
Typically, we like to try to mount TVs that are 77 or 75 and above, just because the size of it and everything. It's going to look a little bit nicer, a little bit cleaner up on the wall. As Jacob said, we don't want anybody bumping into that. It would suck to lose out on a $2,700 TV because a cat knocked it over or something like that.
Yep.
So.
And I would double check the size of your TV if you're going to go for mounting. Don't do a full motion mount for a TV larger than 75 inches, 85 inches. We generally don't recommend that because there's a lot of weight that's hanging on that bracket, and over time it's going to sag, it's going to tilt. So it just generally doesn't end out perfect. If you don't mind remounting that TV every few months, maybe every year, then that's fine, but we generally recommend just a tilting mount for those big TVs.
And I'm going to kind of backtrack us up just a little bit here to
Sure.
kind of the beginning of our presentation here. Back to that sizing guide range, especially when we are talking about mounting a TV. If you're curious, you're like, you know what, I want a 100-inch TV up there. And you're thinking to yourself, that's going to look amazing, but you're not sure if it's going to fit that space. What I would go ahead and recommend to you is go ahead and take masking tape, kind of tape off a 98-inch, kind of what it would end up looking like on that wall. It's going to give you a really good sense on how it's going to look. It's going to tell you if that's going to be the center point of that room, or if you're going to have any room to end up adding maybe some audio equipment down below it or off to the sides of it or something like that. So just general recommendation.
And when he says 98-inch, he's measuring diagonally.
Correct. I am measuring diagonally.
Do bigger screens look as good as the smaller I've seen? The bigger ones look a little grainy. The problem there is content. It just depends on what you're watching. I'll say right now, cable is generally going to be a more grainy footage because it's not the same resolution that a streaming service can give you. 4K content versus 1080p or 720p is very, very noticeable.
Oh yeah,
so
100%.
It's all about the content that you're watching across the screen. What we're showing in here, this is 4K content. So we're going to get a more smooth and a cleaner image out of that.
Also, it might even come down to those viewing distances that we talked about earlier as well too. Maybe you are watching something 4K. As you can tell, Jacob and I, we're probably about 5 feet away from the 100 inches here. So it might look a little bit grainy from our point of view, but we're also very close to it. If you're going for one of those 100-inch TVs, you want to make sure that you're going to be probably about that 15 foot, at least, foot back.
Are the TVs with Roku built in good quality? They're not bad quality by any means. There are different options when it comes down to them, and some are definitely better than others.
We actually only have currently one option anymore for Roku
yes,
TVs.
Yes, so now it is Element. They are a great value. If you find other options out there, I wish I could speak more on them, but we're not super familiar with stuff that we do not carry, unfortunately.
Absolutely. We used to have TCL as a brand that used to end up having that Roku built on the inside of it. Unfortunately, TCL decided to get away from that, and they went more for a Android Google-based operating system this time around. So we are just kind of down to that Element, but if it was something to where you're a huge Roku fan, you're liking the look of like an LG TV or a Sony TV or a Samsung, you can always end up doing a Roku stick in the side of it to end up kind of taking over that main operating system to have the Roku on that TV for you.
Now we can go through a little bit on pricing and what budgets are going to be. You can really get into a 55-inch TV as cheap as $300.
Yeah.
You can also get them as expensive as $6,000. It's purely dependent on what you want out of the system.
Or what you value out of your TV.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what you're looking for, and we could really pinpoint that for you. So if you come on into the store, any of our salespeople would be happy to help you with it.
Absolutely.
Now, we do want to touch on outdoor TVs a little bit.
Yeah.
So we have full shade, partial sun, full sun. Do you mind touching on those?
Absolutely. So it's kind of as it's stated, a full shaded TV, you obviously want to be full shade, partial shade, as long as that sun's going to be hitting parts of it, smaller parts of it throughout the day. That's where I'd say going more of a partial shaded TV. And then if you're going to end up being right out directly in the sun with that TV, you want to go into a full sun TV. So the name kind of implies with the direction that you end up going with it. Now, obviously, there are going to be pretty big, I'd say, price discrepancies from a full shade TV to a full sun TV. Reason being, a full sun TV, since it is fully out there in the sun, they have to have a lot more lights built on the inside of that TV to help bring out that net output or that brightness factor to it, because it has to combat against that sun. And then with your partial shade, kind of the same deal. It has a little bit, so just a little bit more brighter than what your full shade would end up being, and then your full shade would end up being your cheapest options.
Now, the big idea when it comes to them is they are waterproof, dustproof, cold proof, hot proof, even bug proof. And you know, in the Midwest, we have a lot of bugs.
Oh, yes, we do.
I've had customers come in that had indoor TVs placed outside that had nests of bugs. You won't have that issue when it comes to an outdoor TV. And not to mention the convenience of not having to carry this TV in and out and in and out. That's the idea when it comes to an outdoor TV. So definitely take a look at those if you have a patio or maybe a pool area or hot tub that you want to relax or chill in when you're hanging out during the summer.
Yeah.
We can move into audio. We'll talk about different options when it comes to speakers like JBL, Bose, Sonos TV brands. Let's talk a little bit first about the sound bars versus a component audio system, though.
Absolutely. So when you're looking at sound bars to the higher end kind of component audio system, sound bars are only going to end up doing so much for you, right? Most sound bars are going to be, I guess your midline sound bars are going to be equipped with a 5-channel system, to where it's going to be a center channel, a left, right, and typically 2 side firings or 2 height channels. Just kind of depends on which sound bar you go with. But there's only so much that can end up doing for you. It's not going to have as much separation there. You're not going to be passing as well of audio formats to that soundbar. Now, when you end up getting into that component audio system, and I'll use a 5-channel system for a component as well as an example as well, typically that's going to be a center channel in your front, 2 towers, and then also 2 bookshelves behind you. Now, the nice thing is with that is you're going to end up having a lot more drivers. You're going to be able to hit those higher frequencies, those lower frequencies a lot better than what a soundbar would end up being, and you're also going to end up having that separation there between all of those channels as well.
True dynamic surround sound
Yes.
is kind of what we're looking at there. You're also getting a lot more power off to those speakers to give you better frequency ranges. The difference is, though, it's convenience, and it's really dependent on what is good for you as well. I know I keep saying that, but it's dependent on the customer and what they're looking for.
Typically, most people are coming in, they just want a soundbar. They don't want to go and wire a bunch of stuff up, have a receiver, have a bunch of towers and stuff like that. It's a great option to go that route, but soundbars do typically tend to be the easier route to end up going with it.
They are a lot easier to set up. Just know that there are performance differences. So
100%.
we have 3 new audio vignettes in our area that showcase quite a few different speaker options, and we'd love to show them off to you because it is a game changer having a full surround
fun
system
to demo as well too, that's for sure.
Yeah,
we
no
can
doubt.
definitely make some loud noises in the store.
That's exactly right. So when we're going in to connection for TV to a sound system, the best way to connect those devices are HDMI ARC or HDMI EARC. Those are a standard HDMI connection that pass audio up and down, or it's a 2-way communication. Anything that you'd like to touch on there?
Yeah, absolutely. So with that EARC, you're an enhanced audio return channel. It's passing better formats of audio. So if you're trying to get an Atmos signal or something like that, that's where you're going to be getting that from. And then on top of that, it's going to give you something called CEC control, which is typically prevalent in most 2.1 HDMI slots.
Really, any new TV these days.
Yeah, absolutely. But essentially what that's doing, it's consumer electronic control. And what that's going to do, it's going to take your TV and it's going to take your soundbar, it's going to merge them both into pretty much one unit, to where you just need that one remote to control everything rather than juggling 2 or 3 different remotes. So it's more of an ease of use type of situation.
I am going to backtrack just a little bit just to touch on some questions that somebody put out there. Do they not make 60-inch TVs anymore? There are some, but I think we carry one.
We
It's
might
from
have
Samsung, I'm pretty sure.
one option. It might be an Element rather than Samsung.
Okay.
I could be mistaken on that. I do know that.
It's a special order. It's not something that we carry in store. It's just not a popular size anymore. They go from 55-inch to 65-inch. And we also had another question about TVs. Is there a lot of 8K content out there?
Not a whole lot at the moment,
yeah,
no.
it's mostly YouTube. We will probably see that in the next couple of years, but everything is finally starting to transition into 4K. So we're just hitting that mark now. Now, I know with over-the-air, we will start seeing higher resolution over-the-air channels with ATSC3, which a lot of the new TVs are supporting.
Most Samsung TVs will end up being automatically equipped with it, and some of your higher end, some of your Sonys, most Sonys I believe nowadays, and then also I believe it's just more of this kind of midline to higher end LGs will end up having that.
Yep, so when you're getting into those things, you'll be able to start seeing 4K just over the air, 8K, not so much yet, but it's a future-proof.
Nice thing is with 8K going into cable though, since 8K is having so much more of a pixel count compared to 4K, it is going to try to upscale that image as best as possible. So it is going to look better Cable's going to look better on an 8K TV than it is on a 4K TV. That might persuade you a little bit more towards an 8K TV rather than a 4K, but typically 4K is more that route that we want to end up sticking in with it.
What is the difference between ARC and eARC?
Yeah.
Audio return channel and enhanced audio return channel. Enhanced audio return channel can pass Dolby Atmos DTS-X. Those are different audio formats that are out there to provide a height channel as well as object-based surround sound. So what that is if something is moving around, say my phone's moving around me, it's following and my speakers are activating as it moves.
My personal favorite example of that would end up being Top Gun, right? Most people, I should say, have seen the newer Top Gun movie. Watching Tom Cruise fly his jet from right to left, it's going to actually track that audio of him flying that jet right to left. So it's going to be kind of a nice little head of a feature for you.
What TV is directly behind me? This is the TCL 98-inch. This is the 100-inch Sony, Samsung 98-inch, and 97-inch LG OLED.
And then your priced range, Sony TV you're running at the moment $8,000, TCL you're running about $4,000, our Samsung Mini LED you're running about $15,000, and then our big boy LG OLED G2 is running a whopping $25,000 at the moment.
Not a small cost, but definitely worth it.
Yeah, you could either, maybe put a down payment on a car, maybe buy a house, or buy a TV. The choice is yours.
What is the best budget-friendly TV?
Best budget-friendly TV. I'm a personal big fan of the TCL line. I think TCL, I think it makes a pretty good, reliable TV, and I think the cost point for it is excellent. Most of them are going to end up being direct lit TVs to where they are shining that image from the back, so when you're trying to get into those finer levels of detail, it's not going to be really able to achieve it as much, but I still think it's a pretty good image and a reliable TV for sure.
It's a very popular TV if you're looking for something with a good cost, with pretty decent performance for that cost.
Absolutely.
We always call them our best value option when it comes into that entry line from TCL.
Yes.
Now they do make some higher end level TVs.
Absolutely.
I mean, as you see, we have the 98-inch right here, so they do make higher end options. They also make those entry level TVs.
Absolutely. They have mini LED options as well too. So if you're looking for, maybe you have that brightness factor that's coming in and hitting that TV, but you're not looking to spend, $1,700 on a 55-inch TV to help with that glare. They make a pretty good, I believe it's roughly around about a $500, $600 market for that mini LED, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's about right.
Yeah.
Let's move back into audio.
Yeah.
We'll touch a little bit on the different formats for audio. But first, somebody does want to ask, what is a good soundbar for under $300?
Good soundbar for under $300. It depends on if you're looking with something with a sub or without a sub. If you're looking for something without a sub, I'm a big fan of the Bose TV speaker. I think it's a really nice, easy plug and play 3-channel soundbar. If you're looking for something that's going to end up being really nice and clear for those voices, it has that center channel that's really only going to end up working on that. On top of that, it comes with something called a dialogue mode. You press a button in, it drops the treble and bass on everything else and produces that center channel out more. I think at the moment, or typically the price for that is around about $280, so it is going to be at the top of that $300 budget, but it is a good option for you if you're just looking for a soundbar.
So now we'll touch on what the channels mean. So you were mentioning that's a 3-channel soundbar.
Yeah.
We're going to start with the basic. There's 2-channel soundbars, which are stereo. They're just left and right. It's just projecting audio out. It's doing better than what your TV can do because it's not projecting that sound down and behind the TV.
And most of your $100, $200 soundbars are typically going to end up being that kind of that 2-channel system like that.
Now there are 2.0 and 2.1. 2.1 means that it has a subwoofer.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's going to give you all your low frequency instead of having your bar do all of that hard work. And then we're moving into surround sound formats like 5.1. When you're getting into 5.1, just like you were talking about with a component system, you're going to have a center channel for vocals, front speakers, and side-firing rears or true rears that are wirelessly connected up to the soundbar.
Absolutely, and JBL makes I'd say a pretty good option for those wireless rear speakers for you
Yes,
as well, too.
Whether it's their wireless ones or even their simulated one like the JBL 500.
So you start at the 500, 5-channel soundbar, center, left, right, 2 side firings, and then as soon as you end up moving down to their next model, their 700, 1000, and also their 1300 line, that's where they actually have detachable speakers. You remove those speakers, set them behind you, and you have wireless surround speakers, which is really nice and very, very convenient, especially if you're not looking to, throw something up on the wall. When you're done with it, take it off the back of the couch, slide it right back into its slot. It takes roughly about 3 hours to charge, 10-hour battery life. So.
Yeah. Next, we're talking about Atmos and DTS:X or other object-based surround modes. That is specifically for sound to bounce off the ceiling, bounce back down to you. It gives you that effect that if a plane is flying over the top, you get that feeling of over the top. A lot of sound bars now are actually supporting that, whether it's from JBL or Sony or Bose or Sonos, all sorts of different options out there that support them. And the beauty of sound systems these days is you don't have to match your TV brand.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
can really do any brand.
If you want to do an LG TV with a Samsung soundbar, all the power to you.
It all works because of that HDMI ARC or eARC connection.
Now, I will state off, since we are talking about soundbars and compatibility with soundbars, I think Samsung actually does a really, really good job at kind of merging their soundbars into their TVs. They do something called Q Symphony, to where they're going to continue to leave those TV speakers on, adding in almost like a center channel there for you.
Extra dynamic.
Yep, adding in that extra dynamic there, to where their soundbars and their TVs pair very, very nicely with each other. Most other soundbars on the market just going to end up kind of overriding the TV speakers just for the soundbar there.
So, 2 questions here. What is the best option for surround sound, mainly for football and movies? So I'm a big fan of component audio. I have component audio at home, so I have a receiver and speakers and a sub. When it comes to sound, there's no right answer. There is really, it's such a wide range and wide, I guess, amount of choices.
And it's going to come down to what you think sounds the best as well, too.
Everybody's ears are different.
I think JBL sounds absolutely amazing. I have customers that come in all the time and they're like, I'm not a big fan of it. Let's look at a different option. So I'd say that's kind of the case where you come in, we'll find the best option for you.
We do some demos. We'll do some A and Bs, so you can find what sounds best to you. I would, if you came in and you were talking to me, the first thing I'd show you is Martin Logan. Those are my favorite sounding speakers. Another person's might be Bowers & Wilkins, and another person's might be Klipsch. So
I'm a big Focal fan myself.
So there are lots of different options, and there's no right answer. But I will say, getting into anything that's going to have that surround effect is really going to add and give you a great experience.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Real quick, since we're in the middle of this here, don't forget that if you actually comment or ask us any questions in the comments below, that we are going to go ahead and enter you in for a giveaway. To repeat that again, we are giving away a 65-inch 8K QNED 99 from LG. Roughly estimate about a $1,700 value. Again, all you have to do is just either comment below or ask Jacob or I any questions at all. And then we are also going to be giving away that TV at the end of the presentation. After we end it and everything, we'll end up reaching out to you for whoever wins.
Would you recommend a sound system that has 2 subwoofers, or do you think that is too much?
I think it depends, again, on what you're trying to achieve. I think a 2-sub system, I think it is a great idea. If you're really trying to get that thump behind you, that's going to end up giving it to you there.
Now, it also depends on the space that you're in. It could be a big space, it could be a small space. I mean, in a small space, it just depends on the person. If you really like bass, heck yeah, do 2 subs. If you're in a very large space, it's definitely beneficial to do 2 subs.
100%.
You want to balance out that area. If you have multiple seating areas, you want all of them to get that same sound.
We even have people that do 4 subs, so it's
Without a
not
doubt.
uncommon to end up doing 2 subs. Now, if I was to end up doing 2 subs, I would either do corner to corner, I would do it right in front, and then one directly back behind. If you're going to end up going that 4, you're just doing corner to corner for all of them.
Another question here, a 7.1 speaker better than a 3.1? When you get into a 3.1, what that is it's not an actual audio format, but they blend a 5-channel sound into 3 speakers. What a 7.1 is, that's actually a format for audio. So generally, yes, I would argue that a 7.1 is going to be better than a 3.1.
100%.
But I would really need to know what device we're talking about, you know. They could put better power into one soundbar than another. Who knows?
Yeah.
Without knowing exactly what we're talking about. There are outdoor speakers and outdoor soundbars as well. Sorry, answering the question
You're
before
so
even reading
fine.
it. But yes, they make outdoor soundbars. Each brand that makes outdoor TVs does make a soundbar for those TVs, at least for the most part.
Yep.
And then if you're not doing soundbars and you wanted to do whole yard audio, we definitely do that. Most commonly done as a 70-volt system, which is placed all over the backyard or front yard or side yard. There are lots of ways to do it, and if you come in, we can absolutely walk you through how that works.
Absolutely.
Somebody asked if the Vizio soundbars are good. What is your opinion?
I think that they're not bad soundbars. I think if you're looking for a soundbar that's, you're on a budget and you're looking for something that's at least going to be better than your TV speakers, I think a Vizio soundbar is a great option for you. Now, if you're trying to, get the entire home theater experience out of your Vizio soundbar, I wouldn't set your expectations too high for it. But again, if you're just looking for something that's a little bit better than TV speakers, I think it's a good option for you.
Yep, I'd argue that they're going to be a better value option. Now they do make some higher end units,
absolutely.
and they are very well reviewed. But it just depends on what you want out of the system. Let's talk a little bit about how gaming and surround systems works and how much that actually affects the experience. So when it gets into the new gaming systems and the new games out there, all of these production companies are focusing on more of a surround effect to give you a better, more accurate surround sound or experience and immersion when it comes to your games.
I'm big when it comes to immersion on my games, so if I'm playing, Red Dead Redemption or something out there, I want to be a cowboy, right? I want to be that person, and that's where that sound system will end up kind of helping you immerse yourself a little bit more into that scenario there for you. Especially me being a gamer, I'm the type of person where I want to be fully immersed in that game as much as I possibly can. So that's just something that you can end up doing to essentially just help out with that experience.
Yeah, and just think about if you're in a competitive side of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, say you're playing Overwatch or something, and somebody's upstairs running
not
by.
Overwatch. Let's stick with Call of Duty, Jacob.
All right, let's stick with Call of Duty. If you're playing Call of Duty and they're running over the top of you, you can hear them above you. That's the beauty of an Atmos setup when it comes into gaming. There are lots of different ways to take advantage of this. If you're playing a horror game and you want to be spooked when something comes up behind you.
Especially having those rears, when you are playing those competitive games as well too, you're going to be able to hear those footsteps behind you, so you can react to that a little bit faster. So it definitely does end up helping out.
And I know we've probably had some new people pop up in the chat, so if you do want to ask a question or leave a comment, you will be entered to win in our giveaway for the $16.99 LG 8K QNED TV.
Yeah, QNED 99, great TV. So
now we'll talk a little bit more about sound systems and placement of sound systems.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to a basic sound bar, you're going to be placing that right below the TV. That is the ideal spot for it.
And there are also different mounting methods for us if we are mounting that TV, or if you're just planning on putting on a credenza. But traditionally, as Jacob said, it is going to sit typically right below the TV, or at least somewhere in front of the TV for you.
Exactly right. Now, if you have rear speakers with the sound bar, generally we would recommend to your left and to your right, about 30 degrees away from your head, and within 2 feet, 3 feet away. But there are a lot of ways to dial that in. So you can tweak it. If your space doesn't allow for a 2 foot away speaker, there's a lot that you can do to adjust that. When you're getting into heavier duty systems like Atmos speakers, generally you want them in front of you in the ceiling or behind you in the ceiling. And if you have side firing speakers, right off to the sides.
Absolutely.
So there are a lot of ways that you can set up your systems, and we can make whatever work in whatever space. There are lots of different types of speakers that make them work. We do have another question here. What would be the best soundbar for a good gaming experience?
Best soundbar for a good gaming experience.
I've got 3 probably off the top of my head.
I'm partial to JBL. I'm a big JBL fan this year. I think even just JBL's kind of like midline model, their 500. I think that would be a great just soundbar experience. And then also I'd say probably Sonos. If we're talking more of a smaller soundbar, nothing super extravagant. I think Sonos's Beam is a great option for you as well too. It also has those side firing channels to kind of immerse you a little bit more into that as well too. But the nice thing is Sonos is you can add on to that system a little bit. If you wanted to just start off with a soundbar sub, but you also want to add in rear speakers in the future, you have that option to add it on. As for JBL, if you got by that JBL 500, it's just going to be that soundbar sub. Unfortunately, you can't add on past that. So we've mentioned a couple times now, kind of depends on the experience that you're trying to end up achieving out of it, but we do definitely have some good options here in store for you.
Yeah, and I would agree. Those would be 3 models that I would probably choose as well.
Yeah.
Any Bose, maybe even going bigger, going to Bose 900, Sonos Arc Bar, or even the JBL 1600. They're all 1300.
1300.
Excuse me.
Yep.
they're the best options that you can get from those brands, and they're really going to give you an accurate experience or good performance. What are the options for the new Sonos speakers? That's a good question. They did just release some new speakers not too long ago.
The Era 100 and the 300, if I'm not mistaken, right?
And their mini sub.
Yes, and their mini sub as well too. So the Era 100, this time around, I guess it was a replacement for the one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, kind of.
Or some, in some capacity at least, a replacement. But the one speaker, which is just kind of their base. Sorry, we had
We're opening soon.
Yes, we are opening soon. That is for sure. We have our base one speaker, which is going to be a single driver that's going to be sitting there. That's going to end up kind of producing that just out in that one area. Now, when you get to the Era 100, that's actually going to be an omnidirectional sound, where you're going to get a 360-degree sound around the outside of it. On top of that, the Sonos One has to be controlled through the Sonos app. The Era 100 actually allows a Bluetooth connection on top of that. So if you did have some people coming over, they wanted a Bluetooth through the speaker, they can do that with the Era 100. As for the one, you cannot. It's one of those smaller things out there, but it does make a difference. And then their 300 adds on the Atmos topper. Same thing with that omnidirectional sound. That 300 is going to be something that we're going to be pairing up with the Sonos Arc Bar, a little bit larger of a sound bar, to end up kind of putting you in that full bubble of sound there for you.
Another question, can you get the 98-inch QLED TV with Roku, or do I need to get a Roku stick with it? You would need to get a Roku device. Unfortunately, they are Android. If you were looking for Roku, they do not make that anymore. I don't think they've made that in Roku at this size
Not
before.
that I'm aware of, no.
Me neither. But that is as simple as getting a Roku device, whether it's a Roku Ultra, which is going to have a better internet connection, a Roku Express 4K, or a Roku Stick 4K. Those all will give you that Roku system. Just easily, boom, boom, done.
Yep.
Aside from the Sonos One or Era 100s and Era 300s, we have that mini sub as well.
Absolutely.
Great for a medium or smaller space.
If you're living in like a one-bedroom, two-bedroom apartment, typically I'd pair you up with like the Sonos Beam, comes in either black or white, with their mini sub as well too. It's about a 5-inch sub. It's not going to be giving off super crazy low frequencies, so you're not going to be waking up either like your neighbors or anything like that. So I think that would be a good option for more of a one-bedroom, two-bedroom apartment.
Yes,
so.
absolutely. Do Android TVs have the same streaming apps as Roku?
Most cases,
Pretty
yes.
much, yeah. Roku might have some more niche options, but not the main ones.
Roku has like Roku channels, but also at the same time, LG has LG channels, and Samsung has Samsung TV Plus. So there's different apps, but they're also the same at the same time.
Very similar.
Yes.
You might find some more niche apps on a Roku device than you're going to find on another device, but for the main channels, yes, you're going to have Hulu, Netflix, Disney, HBO, all of the main ones you're going to be looking for.
Yeah, most of your big apps are going to end up being on there. Now, I'd keep in mind, though, that there are going to be some apps on certain TVs that are not going to be there. I think the biggest one that we have to kind of overcome in our daily is ESPN+. Obviously, a lot of people like sports, and ESPN+ offers that 4K sport channel there for you. Now, LG is one of the few brands, if I'm not mistaken, that does not actually offer ESPN+, so you'd have to have some type of workaround or going into a different TV. So, but that's going to end up kind of coming down to also personal research from both the sales side and also the customer side, what you're looking for and what we can help find, or what we can help find you look for. Yeah.
Don't be shy and ask the questions. We will do our best to ask whatever questions we can.
I personally ask a lot of questions.
Yep, so if you come in and you're talking to us, don't get annoyed. We're just trying to make sure we get the right thing for you the first time. The last thing we want is for you to be unhappy and have to go through an exchange or a return process.
Absolutely, and if it was something to where maybe you don't want to come in store as well too, you can always call NFM directly. We have phone sales people that will end up kind of helping you also direct you in that right direction as well too. Absolutely. I know after pandemic and everything, a lot of people still don't want to end up kind of leaving and whatnot, which is understandable. So we definitely have options for you.
Another question, and this one's about the Samsung Frame TV. Do they offer good picture quality? Definitely, I would argue that they do, especially since this is an aesthetic-based TV. It's very good for being a TV that's not meant to be your main
Yeah,
TV. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. We have a couple. I know we have a couple coworkers here that actually have the frame TV. And if you're looking to make a little art wall, and you're not looking, this is not your main primary TV. I would not make this your main primary TV. But if you're looking for like an art wall or just something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, it's going to blend into an art wall. You won't even be able to tell that's a TV up on the wall. Or if you just wanted like a smaller piece, you know, maybe just like looking at a picture frame or something like that, giving you that same illusion out of it as well too.
That's the big idea, is when you're getting into their TV, that frame, it doesn't look at all like a TV when it's off. When you hit the off button, it goes straight to a photo. You can put different frames on the screen. You can do whatever you want. So if you ever change what your style is down the line, you can adjust it to fit. That's the beauty of that TV.
They also give you different options how to get art on there as well too. You can either download the Smart Things app, and that's kind of Samsung's way to end up getting, you know, pictures from your phone to the TV without doing a USB stick. The other way would also be a USB stick, or Samsung also does offer some type of subscription plan to end up having preloaded art on the TV for you as well too.
Yes. Now, I would talk about, with the frame TV, the One Connect box.
Yes, absolutely.
That is a very key component. A lot of people do not know about that, so we'll talk a little bit about it.
So essentially what they ended up doing with the Samsung Frame TV is they kind of had to strip a lot of those major components out of the TV. They said, hey, we understand you want a flush TV up against a wall that's going to look like an art piece. We're going to give it to you, but there's always a but there, isn't there? But we're going to end up also giving you this as well too. And this, what I'm talking about, is the One Connect box. So it's an external box that essentially has the processing unit. Yep. Has essentially the processing unit on the inside of it with all your components, a One Connect cable that runs from the One Connect box up to the TV. It's roughly about a 6-foot cable that it comes with as well too. But all of your HDMI components would be there. Typically, there's different ways to end up hiding it. Either doing a recessed box back behind the TV, putting it underneath like a credenza, or if most people have some type of cabinet space that they can put it in as well too. But that tends to end up being the hardest kind of challenge to end up overcoming with the Samsung frame, is that One Connect box, because it can be an inconvenience for you. But we also have different TVs that we could also end up looking at that might not have as well of a art feature on it, but also offer that art feature that might work out a little bit better for you. So
absolutely. Now I will say one more thing on the frame before we move on to some more audio things. That One Connect box, if you are remodeling your area and you put stone up, know that it's going to be very hard to get that One Connect box wherever it needs to go and hide that One Connect cable. So if you would build around that idea. Yeah,
absolutely.
So we'll move on into calibration systems for audio. A lot of different...
Real quick reminder, don't forget to leave a comment or ask Jacob and I any questions, because we are also doing a giveaway as well too. If you haven't heard about it, giving away an 8K 65-inch QNED 99, roughly estimated about a 1,700 value. Again, all you have to do is just go ahead and leave us a comment, ask us any questions or anything like that, and we'll automatically enter you in for that giveaway for you.
Perfect. So going into calibration.
Yes.
The benefits of calibration for your audio system, you're going to have a lot of different choices when it comes down to systems.
Or even calibrating your TV, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you can calibrate your TV as well to get the most accurate colors. When you get into even JBL or Sonos, Bose, any receiver system, there's a way to calibrate your setup to sound the best. Absolutely. It sounds the most accurate in your area, focusing on reflection points off of your walls, focusing on your carpet or your seating area or your ceiling. The big idea when it comes down to audio is we want to make it the best for you, and we can do that with a lot of the different technologies that are out there.
I think both Bose and JBL are great options if you're looking for a calibrated soundbar. Bose uses something called Adapt IQ, to where it's kind of funny doing it, but when you end up getting the Bose 900, it comes with this little black tiara thing. You set it on top of your head, and then it'll have you sit in your 5 most satin spots. Once you sit in those spots and it calibrates it, it's going to shoot those audio waves out into those spots for you to give you that good experience from your favorite spot that you're sitting in. And then JBL is more of can be a plug-and-play soundbar. If you just wanted to grab the soundbar, plug it in the TV, call it good, you can do that as an option. Or JBL also does offer the JBL One app, to where you can go through and you can calibrate that soundbar. It goes through a little sound testing simulation type deal where it kind of dictates where those walls are in your room. But you would also be able to go on there and kind of change those equalizers as well too for you.
And manually tweak things after you're all said and done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, just to touch again, audio, We do have outdoor audio solutions, whether it's a receiver and you're running a couple of speakers outside, or if you want to do a full landscape system, that is all something that you can do.
Yeah.
So if that's something that you're interested in, come in and see us. We have one more question here. Do you have any recommendations on things to listen to when you're setting up a sound system? I do, definitely. I like a lot of music. I generally use my bass line as Jack of Speed from Steely Dan. I think it's a really great way to tell if everything's working properly. It's got, you know, a nice bass tone, it's got the horns, and it's got a good voice that you can listen to. But if we're listening to surround for a movie, Ready Player One's car race scene is probably one of our most popular.
It is a fun one to demo in store, that's for sure, that's for sure.
Really, even the new Top Gun,
yeah,
Maverick.
The new Top Gun, even that first 10-minute scene there is a great way to end up just showing off what that sound system can end up doing for you.
Absolutely.
I'm more of a theatrical type of guy myself, so we have a couple different Spider-Man demos that we end up running in store as well too that kind of show off a lot of that kind of good sound that you can end up getting out of your system. So
now we're going to move out of audio and we're going to go into our installation, our pickup, and our delivery side of things. We offer same-day pickup, next-day delivery, and free delivery on 55-inch or larger TVs.
Yes.
And we also offer installation services. Our installation services are, in a lot of cases, done by our NFM employees. We have a lot of different things that we can do to get you all set up.
Yeah, we actually do have two different teams nowadays. So either our custom NFM team, or we also go through another subdivision called CRST for installs. So that kind of depends on what route we're end up going with. If we're going to use, it comes down to salesperson at the end of the day. If we're going to go with NFM side, if we're going to go for our third-party side. So. But typical pricing that we're looking at, if you're looking just to have that TV out to you, again, it is free delivery there for you, but maybe you want it out, you wanted it set up, you wanted us to hook up to the network and everything, you're typically looking at about $150 price range for that. If you are looking for us to go out there mounting it into like drywall or something of that nature, we're looking at $250, and as soon as you end up going like above a fireplace, maybe you're going into stone, marble, something in that range, we would be looking about $350 for pricing on mounting for you. So.
Now our situation goes a lot further than just TV mounting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can do many, many things. We can do low voltage lighting. We can do full home audio and video matrixing.
Security cameras,
commercial spaces, new builds and pre-wires. There's a lot that we can do, and that's all capable of being done because our team is CDS certified.
Yes.
They are certified by the Electronics Design and Installation Association.
Absolutely, and that would be something a little bit more on Jacob's side of things. I'd be more on just kind of the general home theater side of things. So
yes, so if you were interested in doing a full home setup, come and see us at the desk. We have a desk in the back of the home theater area. We do a lot of big projects, so we're not shy about anything.
Yeah.
So moving on, we are looking at other questions that we might have, or we can close this on up.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If anybody has any more questions for us, just send them on over.
Yeah. Don't forget, if you are commenting, asking us any questions, you are entered for a giveaway. Again, we are giving away a 8K 65-inch QNED 99 from LG, estimated about a $1,700 value. All you gotta do is ask one of us a question, or just comment down below, just stating off that you're here with us.
We do have a question.
Yeah.
TVs have audio control or voice control with their remotes.
Yes, absolutely.
They were specifically asking about LG, and yes, every LG right now does.
Yeah.
Even in the 32, I think.
I believe there is one option in an 86-inch option that does not, but it'd be a little bit older of a model, but most are equipped with some type of voice control option on there. Either hooking it up just based off of the remote, or most TVs you can also hook up to either like an Alexa or a Google to also control it from that side as well too.
We could talk a little bit about Square Trade.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you want to give them a rundown.
Yeah,
maybe.
absolutely. So on a lot of these TVs nowadays, you're typically getting anywhere between about 3 to 6 years out of it. And that's not saying that you're going to have a catastrophic failure or anything like that by any means. But, you know, maybe you have a dead pixel that goes out, or there's going to be a couple of those light zones that are going to be going out on you. What we offer for you is a 3 or 5 year, essentially a guarantee on the TV. As long as it's non-accidental and it's not stolen or anything like that, we're going to get you covered on it. But that include dead pixels, panel failures, power supply issues. I at one point got hit by a storm. They had me covered on it. So again, that's anywhere between 3 to 5 years. It does go based off of a price level as well too, so it's going to come down to what type of TV you get for the pricing on that. But definitely a good way to help maintain the life of your TV. Most cases, what they're doing is we're not really going to repair it anymore. It's going to end up typically being the cost of the TV to end up repairing it, so they really don't want to end up going down that route. So they'll either replace that model one for one, or most cases, what they did when I got hit by a storm is they'll actually go ahead and cut you a check for what you ended up paying for on the TV. That will end up coming down to their discretion on what they're going to end up doing for you, but they're pretty good at working with you.
Yeah,
so.
they take care of you. They took care of me, they've taken care of you,
They
and a
also-
couple of other people that are here.
Yeah, they do have a nice convenience factor behind that as well too. You are guaranteed to have something within the next 5 days. If that's either somebody coming out there, if that's a replacement in the mail, or if that's a check in the mail. So,
what is the difference between QLED and Mini LED? Do you want to take that one?
absolutely. So
Sure.
QLED in a term isn't. It's mini LED as well too, right?
Yeah.
So QLED is just a term for these TVs. They're stating off that it's a backlit TV, right? Now you have different forms of QLED. You have Neo QLED, or what would be a mini LED TV, which is kind of what you're asking about. And then you also have like full array, direct lit, and edge lit as well too. Now I'd probably talk more towards like full array and mini LED. I believe that would probably be the two discrepancies that you'd probably see the most in TVs. Essentially, a full array TV or your base QLED TV would end up just kind of having these larger light zones that would be running throughout the entire TV, and those light zones are able to open up and close, adding in those different levels of depth. Where your mini LED takes those larger light zones and just makes them smaller, adds more across them, more lights, more brightness, typically a better image out of that as well too.
And before we close up, I have one more question. Any advice on energy efficient TVs? And I'll answer that. Almost every TV that we offer has an energy saving mode, so you can get away with pretty much anything nowadays. They're all LED based, so you're not really going to run into a high energy usage when it comes down to them. So we'll run it off and we'll close it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for coming and joining Jacob and I while we talk about TVs and audios. We're giant nerds that love talking about it, and we appreciate all the questions that you asked and everything. So,
And we will announce the winner at the end of this NFM Live. Give us a call today or visit any of our locations or any of our salespeople, and we can all help you with our beautiful sites and immersive audio. Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you.